Hello, everybody. If you're watching this, then you're probably in English class, or maybe you're watching it again at home to catch up in case you missed it. Or if I go too fast, no concerns, because you can always come back to this video. I'll make sure you all have it in your email. I'll probably post it on Schoology as well. The point of this quick video is to cover quite a bit of information. It's going to be very detailed. At an initial look, it could seem a little bit overwhelming, but it's not. We're just giving the detail to make sure you understand, what's behind each item that we're addressing. And sometimes at Newark Charter, because we cover all these details, it may seem like it's, an insurmountable leap to apply to these colleges. At some high schools, it sort of happens by osmosis, where the students apply, they figure things out as they go, always getting help along the way. But we're trying to give more specific checkpoint advice. So it seems like we're throwing a lot at you, but it's just so you're thinking about these things now, as opposed to catching them, last second as the colleges remind you about them. So some of what we're covering today is just a checkpoint for things that you should be thinking about now, especially if you have any deadlines coming up in the next few weeks. The majority of students in the senior class, not everyone, but majority, will be applying early action to the University of Delaware, which has a deadline of November 1, but we want to be submitting that by October 25th for reasons I'll explain here, and that we also explained back on transition day. But because of the timelines we're working with, now is really the time to be fully aware of the college process. And it's not in the future anymore, it is upon us. So let's get working on this. So this document, you'll have a link to view this again as well, in addition to this video you're watching now. But the key items we want to go over today are to make sure that you have the correct deadlines for your colleges in Naviance. Now, most of you, or many of you, will know at least what quite a few of your colleges are. You could be still filling out or finishing your lists, but if any colleges that you're applying to, definitely add it to Naviance and make sure that the correct deadline is there. You also, at this point, want to be researching and acting on whether or not you're going to be sending self-reporting or withholding test scores based upon your individual situation at each college. You also want to make sure you start completing your self-reported academic record, or SRAR for short, if that's required of any of your colleges. And it will be required for most Newark Charter seniors because most are applying to the University of Delaware, and they do use the self-reported academic record. So does University of Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech, Rutgers, Penn State, and quite a few others. But most of us are going to be doing the SRAR, and you can start on that now. Also, you're going to be, as you've already been working on, your personal statement, also known as the main Common App essay, and then any required supplemental essays, specifically from the colleges themselves. You also want to make sure that you apply for the Fafsa, the free application for federal student aid. We've been reminding you and your parents about that via lots of emails the last few weeks. Now is the time to complete that. You don't have to be completed with your college applications to do that. In fact, you should be completing the FAFSA now. There's no need to wait because it's based upon taxes from income from 2020, which has come and gone a long time ago. So there's no need to wait to complete the FAFSA. And then do you also have to complete the CSS profile? We'll go over that in a little bit of detail in a minute. And then the typical question sometimes we get would be, how do I actually submit my college apps? I mean, we're covering these different elements, but how do I actually submit? Sometimes we take that part for granted because the Common App will kind of walk you through it, but I will give you a preview of that. And then also don't forget about fee waivers to certain colleges. While we have this up, I'm just gonna click on it now so you see. But when you return to this document, not a bad idea, because it shows from the Department of Ed in Delaware how to get fee waivers from each of these Delawarean colleges or universities. And some of them are also outside of Delaware, as you can see here. We addressed the UD one at transition day in terms of on the application, you select college app month. So most students who were attentive during the transition day, that first day of school, have already indicated that their fee can be waived for the UD app. But this document will show you how to waive your application fee at any of these colleges that are listed here. Let's give Delaware State a look. So Delaware State says on the admissions application under the submit and pay page in the fee waiver section, select yes to have you been given a fee waiver, and then enter that code. Now remember, Del State does not use the common application. They also don't use the common black application, that other application that a lot of HBCUs use. So if you're going to apply to Delaware State, you'll be applying to them directly on their website, and that's where you would enter this fee waiver code. So return to this if you need to for reminders on the fee waivers for the colleges that are in Delaware and a few that are nearby that have decided to participate in the Delaware College App month procedures. Then we also want to just quickly discuss, what do I do after I submit my college apps? And just quickly, you're looking for confirmation emails from the colleges that say thank you for applying. A lot of times they're going to tell you to create an applicant status portal where you can check the receipt of documents and maybe even find out your decision once it's ready. That will also be a portal where you can monitor any to-do items like completing your self-reported academic record, maybe submitting test scores, or if they have any unique requirements within those portals. So again, after you submit an application to a college, you're not done. I mean, you're done much of the heavy lifting, but you have to make sure to read emails the college sends you. If the college sends you several emails saying you're missing a document, you have to follow up on that. It's not just going to happen overnight. So make sure to check those portals after you apply. So let's get into the nitty gritty of this document here. So you want to add and verify your colleges and Naviance with the correct deadlines. That's vital. On Sunday, I sent out emails to a couple dozen students who had what looked to be incorrect deadlines in their Naviance accounts, and that's what we really have to avoid. It makes sense that at this point in the senior year, there'd be still some inaccuracies on Naviance, but as of this week and going forward, all of your deadlines for your colleges and Naviance need to be correct. Both the college, it's the correct college, it's the correct deadline you're using, and then keep in mind, this is the only way that counselors and teachers are going to know to compose and upload and send your documents by whatever deadlines you're putting on there. So it's really vital. We want 1 month advance notice. So right now, if you're watching this, it's the first week of October, which means that those November 1 deadlines really should have been entered at least a week ago. But, given that this is, one of the biggest first rushes of the year, there's some grace period there. There's a few students who actually have October 15 deadlines for early action schools, which are kind of rare, but there's a few students who have that. If you haven't entered an October 15 deadline yet, it's really late in the game. So you may need to check with your teachers if they can meet that requirement. Keep in mind, if one of your October 15 schools is UNC Chapel Hill, they actually allow the teachers and counselors to submit their documents up until November 1. So if you're adding an October 15 that happens to be UNC, you're still okay. If you're adding an October 15 deadline now for a school like South Carolina, that would also be okay because the University of South Carolina does not require teacher or counselor recommendations. But generally speaking, October 15 deadlines should have been added by September 15th. So now we're looking forward to November 1. We have to make sure we have everything on there. And you know what? Why not look ahead to your January deadline colleges, places you may be applying regular decision. Go ahead and add them in Naviance so they're there. No need to wait so you don't forget later. This is a key point to highlight. You don't have to wait for teacher rec letters to be complete, submitted, uploaded, or added to your application for you to submit your application on your end. Because in fact, the documents really can't be together. They just meet at the college via the systems the colleges use. So you simply apply whenever you're ready, and then the counselors and the teacher will be sent by the deadline. Those documents will be sent by the deadline. So, this is kind of a stress reliever for students. Sometimes students are checking on their teacher uploads. Is it uploaded yet? Can I send my app yet? You could have already applied last week if you wanted to. Then the documents will get there when they're ready by the deadline. The Newark Charter teachers and counselors, this is a priority for us. And this is why we use Naviance to proactively and efficiently manage student needs by their deadlines. So it's really crucial that you have the correct deadlines in Naviance. So to edit the deadlines, you simply click the pencil icon in the front row for the school where you want to edit, and then make sure you're selecting the correct chosen deadline. Now, there will be times where you'll see a school have a bunch of different deadline options, and it could be confusing, and you're not sure which one to pick. That's where you probably want to go check out Common App Or you could Google. That's really a great idea to Google the college's specific admissions site to check what they have there. And then also you can look at the drop down in Naviance. But if the drop down of options for a college in Naviance is confusing, that's where you really want to make sure to check Common App and then the college's official admissions website via your normal, college search savvy, just Googling, as we all are capable of doing. So let's give an example of that, of making sure I'm having my correct deadlines in Naviance. So I'm going to go ahead and log into Naviance. This is a practice student account. So I would click colleges I'm applying to. So I have University of Maryland, College Park here. It's listed for regular decision. And like we addressed during transition day and last spring, University of Maryland is a school that if you apply regular decision, your chances of getting in are dramatically lower than if you apply early action. So there's not a single student in the senior class at Newark Charter who should be applying regular decision to University of Maryland. Now, we're probably only going to have, maybe a dozen or so students applying to Maryland, so this doesn't apply to everyone, but this is still a good example. If you're looking at your college deadlines in here and you're seeing schools that have regular decision, make sure they don't have an early action, because like we said, by default, early action is usually a safer approach. So if I wanted to change my Maryland College Park deadline to early action, which I definitely would if I'm interested in Maryland, I would click the edit button or the icon, and then right here where it says app type, I would click the drop down and see their different options. So there's early action. I would click that. I would click Save College App. By the way, if it ever asks you if you want an initial or final transcript, you just say initial, because we're sending it at the beginning of the year. Now, if you have schools you want to add that aren't there yet, you simply click this button here and go through the process of searching for the school and then picking the right deadline. Now, again, if you're not sure what deadline to pick, because a college has like a bunch of options that they list, one thing you could do is go to your Common App account, go to your list of colleges that you've added in Common App, because this is where you'll actually apply to many of them. You can click on the college. So we'll use Duke as an example. And usually when you click on the college, don't worry about these things on the left. Just stay at the landing page and scroll down. It will show you their different deadlines. And this is really helpful from Duke. They actually have an other deadline info thing here where it says, okay, early decision, which is binding. Remember, if you get in, you have to go, unlike early action. But for Duke, if you apply early decision, if you get in, you have to go. So that's binding. They also have regular decision on January 4th. But down here it says, if you wish an alumni interview, we want you to apply for regular decision by December 20th. So obviously, if you want an interview and you're applying early decision, you just apply by November 1st. But if you want an interview and you're a regular decision applicant, while your deadline to submit the app is technically January 4th, they're saying if you want an interview, we really want you to apply by December 20th. It's sort of rare for a school to have this kind of nuance or kind of caveat. So a more typical thing you would see if you clicked on, let's just say Hopkins, for example, on their landing page, it says they have early decision 2, which is again that other option. If early decision 1 didn't work out somewhere, and that's unique to Hopkins. A few other schools have that, and they have regular decision. Now they talk about test optional here as well. So this is a great place, these landing pages of the colleges in Common App, to see what their deadlines are, in addition to whatever's listed in the Naviance drop-down menu. And then if you're not sure, you can go check out the college's website. So those are the steps I would take. But after today, and really even if you can't complete this during this class period, you want to complete it at some point today. You want to make sure that whatever you have in Naviance now is fully accurate. Because going forward, we can't afford to have any inaccuracies here, because then documents will not get where they have to go and your application will be incomplete. So let's go back now to the checkpoint here. The next task is one we really want to spend a good amount of time on. So right now and for the next couple weeks, this is really urgent if you have an October 15 deadline. But for most of us that have a November 1 deadline or something thereafter, right now this is still urgent. It's not quite upon us, but if you wait a week, you're going to start feeling the pressure. So I encourage you to get on this right now, all students. Remember that counselors at Newark Charter, we send your transcript and recommendations to colleges when you've requested it properly in Naviance. But for test scores, you are, as a student, are fully in charge of that. And the reason we're saying sending, self-reporting, or withholding, those are sort of the three options. Am I going to send the test score to the college because they require it, like to be sent officially through the college board or the ACT website? Am I going to self-report the score because the school says I don't have to send it officially, I can list it on the application and that's sufficient? Or am I going to withhold my test scores, so not send it or self-report it because I'm applying to the college test optional, so they won't see my scores? So I'm going to kind of walk you through the questions you have to ask yourself for each college. And this really is something that you have to be deliberate and you have to do a fact-finding mission. There's no easy answer for this. So if you have 5 colleges, you have to do 5 quick research projects on those colleges. If you have 10, you can do it with all 10. And there's already quite a few students that have done this in meetings, either with me or Mrs. Halfin, to make sure that we have the plan figured out to help you. But all this could be done on your own, just verifying at the college's websites. Now, there's 2 videos here that are linked that you can watch if you'd like. It kind of walks you through the logic of figuring out, okay, am I sending my score? Am I reporting it? How do I do that? Should I do that? Now, these videos are from 2020, so some policies that are mentioned from specific colleges could have changed, but these could be helpful video refreshers to watch. And I will acknowledge that this is complex, and it's not something that Newark Charter has control over. Ultimately, the notion of colleges being test optional and not requiring scores, whether it's because of the pandemic or some other institutional priority they have, it does make it more varied from one college to the next, what their policies are. It used to be that everybody has to send a test score through the official college board account so they know that it's legitimate. Well, colleges have really softened on that, and there are many variations. So I wish it were a simple one-size-fits-all approach, but in terms of the simplicity of helping you through this process. But ultimately, these differences are there in some cases to help you. So you really have to do your research to make sure you take advantage of this. So there's a link here that shows how Boston College explains how they're dealing with test optional. Here's a link for a compilation of college policies. I would definitely check that out if you're trying to start and figure out, okay, for me, where should I be sending my test scores? Are they good, et cetera? And here's kind of the questions you want to walk yourself through. Does the college require scores, the college I'm applying to? So college A, whatever it is, do they require scores? If yes, which means they're not test optional, then you need to figure out, do I have to send the score officially? Or is it okay if I just list it on the application? Or do they want me to upload a screenshot or something? So you want to find those instructions and follow them closely. If the question of the college requiring scores, if the answer to that is no, in which case they're probably test optional, decide whether or not you want the college to see your score and then how to send or self-report it based on their policy. So here are some things to think about. Do they give clear advice? So for UD, the advice is pretty clear. If you're 1150 or above, your score can help you. If you're applying to UD and you are below an 1150, you should not be listing your test score on the application. If they don't give a clear benchmark, and lots of colleges won't, you want to ask yourself, is my score, in quotation marks, good for that college relative to their thinking typically? So you look at their middle 50%. So what's the middle range of test scores for students? And we had a video where we addressed that in the past. You can click that if you want. But if the answer is yes, and you're in a good spot for that college, then you probably want to make sure they see the score. But it's not always going to be clear, so you really want to be thoughtful about it. So you can reach out to the college and ask questions. You can talk to a counselor to help, so we can help you kind of decide whether or not you want the score to be seen. And then also, if you're reaching out to a college and you're asking this question, it's worth, if you're asking, should I submit this score? Make sure to double check if it will have any impact on merit scholarship consideration, because there are a small number of colleges that are test optional, but that might require it for scholarships. It's not advisable for schools to do that because it can give the potential for inequities in the alignment of scholarship awarding. But sometimes if you're deciding between scholarship and getting in, you have to focus on getting in first. So just look at this closely and return to this when this video or this document when you're figuring out whether or not you're sending test scores. For some students, it's going to be simple. If your test score is sort of uniformly below where you wanted it to be for the colleges that you like, then maybe you're applying test optional everywhere. For some students, if your score is super high for the schools that you're applying to, then maybe you're always going to be sending the score. But you still have to figure out how you're going to send the score. Is it officially through the College Board website, or is it going to just be by listing it on the application? So this document, shows you how to do that. So if we go back up here, there are links to sending the score officially. So you can click that there. You can also, if you're trying to send a test score officially to a college, you could just Google, send SAT scores, and then the college, you'll log into your College Board account, and then you'll have to send it. Now you'll need a credit card or debit card to send it, unless you qualify for a fee waiver. But so might want to do that with your parents. Keep in mind though, when you're sending a test score to a college, if they require it officially, the College Board takes quite a long time to send it after you've requested it. Sometimes it happens pretty quickly, other times it takes a little while. So do not wait until the application deadline. So that's what this says here. College Board takes time. So if you have November 1 deadlines or October 15, and that college requires you to send a test score officially, if you want it to be seen and you're going to send it, you have to get on it ideally a couple weeks before the deadline minimum. And if you're applying to schools that are due in January, but you know where your test score is now, you would submit, go ahead and send it to them now too. It'll just wait to meet with your application there. So there's no reason to wait for sending test scores. That should be a task you're working on right now, figuring out how to submit my test scores and all of these questions. Remember, for UD, they only require the self-reporting of your scores on the application, unless, of course, you're applying test optional, which means you should remove that test score from Common App, okay? And again, here's a reminder of a document that has instructions for sending test scores officially through College Board or ACT. You could also Google it as well. Then the next task that is helpful to get started on now is to complete or at least create an account to start working on your self-reported academic record, which is also known as SRAR. This is going to be necessary for most Newark Charter seniors. So if you're applying to University of Delaware through the early action deadline, you should submit your application through Common App to UD by October 25th at the latest. That's because you need to make sure you have time to complete the necessary SRAR step that can only be linked with your app after it's submitted, but that's still due before November 1. So you have to apply to UD by October 25th in order to have time to match your SRAR with the application that you submitted. And I'll walk you through this quickly here. This same idea of submitting your app several days before the deadline that's listed applies to any college that uses a self-reported academic record. And you can see a list of those colleges here. And there's also some colleges that use something called an SSAR, just to make it further ridiculous. Granted, these schools that use these systems are using it to try to turn around decisions faster, because they found that the sorting and importing tools in these self-reported features are very helpful for them. So let me just quickly take a look at the SRAR schools. So if you're applying to any of these colleges, now keep in mind UD is on there, so that's going to be a majority of the senior class here. But if you're applying to any of these colleges, they all require an SRAR, a self-reported academic record, which is you reporting all your grades from all your classes at Newark Charter. Now, what's helpful is that once you do it once, the same SRAR could be linked to all these different colleges, so you don't have to do it that many times if you have multiple of these schools. But almost all seniors, the majority are going to be doing this, at least for UD. So even though you cannot link it with UD until after you've applied, you can still start it now and have it ready to go. So these are schools that don't want to receive transcripts from the high school. They want you to report it, your grades and classes. And then if you're admitted and decide to enroll, then we send an official transcript later. So these schools are using this to speed up their process. So again, you want to submit your SRAR before the deadline. have it done, but you cannot fully link it, until the school has received your application, processed it, and then sent you a confirmation email to create an account. So let's give you an idea here. And this is where you would go to create an account. So through this site here, you could also Google SRAR UD or SRAR Virginia Tech, whatever it is there. But you want to have the SRAR account open and created, and then you want to have your hack account in another browser or window, because that's going to show you your classes. So once you have hack open, it'll have your classes and grades if you click the transcript tab. So we're not going to enter our 8th grade classes, but you will enter 9, 10, 11, and you can list your 12th grade classes without grades yet. And the rest of this document walks you through some basics about what you're entering. So I want you to return to this because it would take too long if we address it all now. This can take you, the SRAR can take anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, maybe more if you're distracted. But you really want to be entering all of your classes from Newark Charter except for 8th grade, and you want to enter it as it's listed on your transcript. And this will take some time to do in that account. Make sure to save your account and so you don't lose anything. And then notice how here it says you cannot submit the SRAR to UD until you have applied to UD via the Common App. After you apply, you will receive an email like the one in the screenshot below. You can create your Blue Hen account where you can check your app status. And then you use your ID from that account to link with SRAR. So after you apply to UD and most other colleges like Penn State, Virginia Tech, you'll get an email like this telling you to create an account. And they want you to link your SRAR to it. So after you've created that account, you'll see an application reference number. And then you're going to go through to link that with the SRAR. And their portal will kind of walk you through that. It's really quite simple once it's all ready. The key is that some students, after they click submit to UD or Penn State, et cetera, they walk away and they never check their email, and their application remains incomplete until they do it. So after you've applied to a college, you have not fulfilled the final app. You have to make sure you haven't fulfilled their full requirements yet. Applying gets you kind of in the queue to be looked at, but you have to check your portal to make sure everything is complete and they're actually going to review you for application. So if you submit to UD by October 25th, the Common App, but you don't do your self-reported academic record, you will not receive an admission decision. This is a lot of moving parts. I agree. I wish it was just one application through Common App and that's it. But this extra step does enable Delaware, in some cases, to turn around decisions in a lightning fast way, like in some cases a week or less. That could be rare, and it will vary for everyone depending on how selective the program is they're applying to. But generally speaking, the SRAR kind of pays off the work you're putting in here by hopefully hearing back a little sooner. And then, of course, it goes without saying, we should be completing our personal statements and any required supplemental essays. So this is stuff that was addressed during transition day. Feel free to come back to this document whenever you want to look at this for some reminders. And then also ongoing, complete the Fafsa. Complete the Fafsa. We've been emailing students and parents about that. The Fafsa is now live for your grade as of October 1st. And make sure when you're filling it out that you're submitting the 2022-2023 FAFSA. It's easy to make a mistake and think, oh, I'm doing 21-22. That's the school year we're in now, and you're still in high school. You'll be doing your first year of college will be 2022-23. So that's the FAFSA you should be filling out. And you should be sitting down with a parent to do it now. You don't have to wait till you apply to your colleges to do this. That you submit the FAFSA, it goes to the colleges, and then it meets your app when it's ready, once you submit the app. And then also there's the question, do you have to do the CSS profile? A lot of private colleges require the CSS profile. So if you need help with doing the FAFSA, there are these virtual personal FAFSA appointments where you can work with a financial professional confidentially, privately, with just your family and them, the professional virtually. You can sign up through that link there. And this has also been emailed and put in bulletins. And then if you missed the presentation that was held a couple weeks ago, you can sign up for another one there. That will be with other folks from throughout the state. The Newark Charter specific presentation was a couple weeks ago, but you can always do a makeup. And then if you're applying for merit scholarships, we'll be reminding you all year, but you could also attend one of the state presentations by clicking that link there. So I mentioned the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid that you'll want to fill out with your parent. And then down here is a mention of the CSS profile. So in addition to the FAFSA, there are many private colleges and a few public universities, like some that I mentioned there, use the FAFSA in addition to the CSS profile. So if you want to see which other schools use the CSS profile, you can click that link there, and it will show you the colleges that are requiring the CSS profile. So if you're applying to any of these schools, it means you have kind of double the work to do, the FAFSA and the CSS. They're similar, but they both take some time, and we don't want to be waiting until we're up against the deadlines. So get started working on that with your parent. That's really a task that you need your parental assistance with, but you should be there with them as well. So now I'm just going to quickly go back to the top here. The next two items are how do I submit my college applications, and then what do I do after I submit my app. So we already addressed what you do after you submit the app. You make sure to check your emails from the colleges and follow up on things like linking SRARs and checking your app status portals. Now, how do you actually submit your app to get to that point? So for Common App, it's pretty simple. In Common App, you have to complete all these sections on Common App. Now, see where it says courses and grades? If your Common App says 0 there, that's good. That means none of your colleges require this section. So if none of your colleges require it, don't do it. In my case, it showed that 3 of the schools needed it. I guess these 3 schools use it. But if you're not applying to those schools, then maybe it'll be 0 for you. But you have to complete the entire Common App. Then you have to complete the specific college part of the Common App. So you would have added these colleges by searching for them here and then clicking the plus button. Then they're going to show up in your colleges list. Then you have to complete all their requirements here. So when you're ready to submit for, let's say, Penn State, I would have already completed the Common App, and you can work on these simultaneously. You can work on each college and then the Common App at the same time, back and forth. But when you're ready to submit, you have to make sure your Common App is done. Then you go over to the college you're trying to submit, like Penn State, answer all their questions, and then go to review and submit. Now, it won't let me submit because I didn't complete these tasks, but once all these components are completed, you can review and submit. It's going to show a print preview. Make sure to look at that print preview very closely. Double check it, look for any errors, then go back and edit. But this is where you would actually submit your application if it's a Common App college. Remember that after you submit, you can go back and change things in Common App. Now, it won't change what was already submitted to the college you just sent, but it will change it before you submit the next college, because you do send it one by one when you're ready. So let's just say for Penn State, I was going to be test optional. So that means in Common App, I remove my SAT score. But let's say then for University of Arizona, I want them to see my SAT score. Well, I would go back into Common App and add my SAT score, and then under the testing section, and I would also double check, does Arizona need to receive it officially as well through the College Board? And that's what we talked about before. But to submit applications, we are completing the Common App, then the college-specific portion, and then going to review and submit. And that's what, well, in this case, so Arizona is a good example. They have a review and submit the Common App, and then a review and submit the specific supplement. So make sure to follow both of those to ensure you've completed the application. And then just submitting the app is not always sufficient. You have to double check after you've applied, do they have next steps or emails that they send you? So what we just went over was a lot. And I know that, and I'm hoping maybe you could watch this video again whenever you need to, just to cover certain parts. It's also why I'm here and Mrs. Halfin is here to help you through this stuff. You will be an expert on this, frankly, by the end of this month. And there's no way you could have been expected to be an expert on it right now. But now that you're doing it, and right now this seems like it could be an enormous amount of work if you have a lot of schools, it's all doable. It's been executed by prior senior classes. We did it last year in a pandemic, fully from home, virtually, in a virtual environment. So this can and will be done. I know there's a lot on your plates, but you want to carve out as much time in the evenings, study halls, weekends to make sure to chip away at these tasks. The writing of the essays, frankly, is what takes the longest and the most thought, but it's this other stuff we just addressed, which is sort of like doing your taxes and figuring out how to submit this and how to send that, that you really have to prioritize now also, because we are in that season of sending and completing applications. Please don't hesitate to ask any questions. Shoot me an email, shoot Mrs. Halpin an email. Generally speaking, because of the demands on us this time of the year, we do ask that you try to communicate with the counselor who is doing your college stuff. So, and when we say doing your college stuff, that's like writing your counselor recommendation if required. So you can always see who your counselor is in Naviance, okay? So just a reminder of that. If you don't remember which counselor you're working with for college stuff, you can always contact, either of us, frankly, even if we're not your recommender, but it's always a good starting point to try there. So we're aware of where our students in our caseload are at. So thank you for watching this. You're all going to successfully apply to college. It's just a matter of getting going and submitting these requirements now, and we look forward to helping you. Thank you.